All right, so we've already learned how to evaluate composition of functions given two functions. So now we're going to evaluate composition of functions from two graphs, okay? All right, and it's the same concept, okay, except you're not plugging into an equation, you're going to be getting your answer from a graph, okay? So it's just like you reading a graph and trying to get your points, all right? So now we're going to be looking at graphs instead of equations. It's the same concept, except we're collecting points from a graph instead of plugging into an equation. There are two ways you will see this. You will either have both equations on the same graph, or you'll have two graphs for each equation, okay? So we're first going to start with two equations on one graph, okay? So we have f of x and we have, we have f of x and we have g of x, okay? So f of x is the red one, okay? And then the g of x is the blue one. Let's label that. So this f of x is the red, and then the g of x is going to be the blue, okay? All right, so you still do the same thing. You work inside out, okay? So first, I need to find g of 2. Now remember back from math 3, okay? What's inside the parentheses is your x value, okay? And we're looking for our y. So I need to figure out what is g of 2 on this graph. So when x is 2, what is y? So the g graph is your blue. So when x is 2, so that's right here, it intersects the graph right here at 0. So when x is 2, y is 0. Okay? So now that's going to replace the g of 2. So now I have f of 0. So now I'm going to switch to the f graph. And when x is 0 on the red graph, so when x is 0 is right here, y is negative 3. So my answer is negative 3. Okay? All right, let's do the next one. So the next one, the first one I need to find is f of 2. Okay? So I need to figure out what f of 2 is. That's saying on the f graph, when x is 2, what is y? So the f graph is red. So when x is 2, which is right here on the red graph, that's negative 3. You see that? So I can replace that with negative 3, and I'm left finding g of negative 3. Okay? So recap, f of 2 is negative 3, and I'm going to replace f of 2 with negative 3. So now I have g of negative 3. So g is on the blue graph. So when x is negative 3 on the blue graph, so x of negative 3 is right here, and it intersects the graph right there at what y value point? Negative 5. So that would be your answer. Okay? Now sometimes you don't switch graphs. Just like when we did equations, you can do g of g. All right? So first I find g of 4. So I need to find g of 4 first. So g is the blue graph. So when x is 4, 1, 2, 3, right here, y is 2. So I'm going to replace that with 2. Now I'm looking for g of 2. So when x is 2 on the g graph, what is my y? 0. Okay? All right. So again, remember there's two ways to write composition, okay? This is the way that I think it's simpler if we write it the other way. So we're going to rewrite it to f of g of 0, okay? So the first thing I need to find is g of 0. Okay, so again, didn't change graphs. It's the same thing. The blue graph's green. The blue graph is the g graph. The red graph is the f graph. Okay, so on the g graph, when x is 0, so x is 0 is right here. It hits the graph right here at negative 2. So that's going to be negative 2. Now I'm going to plug negative 2 into the f graph, and I'm going to find f of negative 2. So on the f graph, when x is negative 2, which is right here, where does it hit that graph at? It hits that graph at 5. So that would be my answer. Okay? All right. Again, same thing here, except I want to rewrite this to g of f of negative 1. Okay? So first we need to find f of negative 1. So on the F graph, when x is -1, which is right here, happens to intercept it right there. So on the F graph, when x is -1, y is 0. Now I'm going to plug the 0 into my G graph. So I'm going to find G of 0. So on my G graph, when x is 0, y is -2. Okay? Last one, it is using the f function twice. Okay? So this is like saying f of 3. Okay? So first we're going to find f of 3. All right, so on the F graph, which is red, when x is 3, what is y? 0. Then I'm going to plug that 0 into F, and I'm going to find f of 0. And on the F graph, when x is 0, what is y? -3. And that's your answer. Okay? I think it's a little confusing when it's on the same graph. Okay? So that's why it's really good to know who is who. Okay? Now the next two examples are going to be separate graphs. Okay? I think they're a little easier to see. So number 1's over here. So it says f of g of 1. So first I need to find what g of 1 is. Okay? So first we need to find what g of 1 is. So the g graph is over here, and then the f graph's over here. So on the g graph, when x is 1, y is 3. Okay? So then I'm going to plug that 3 and interchange it, and now I'm going to say f of 3. And on the f graph, when x is 3, y is 6. And that's your answer. Okay? So we're going to bring this guy over here. So this, we're going to rewrite it to g of f of 1. Okay? So first we need to find what f of 1 is. So I go to the F graph, okay? When x is 1, y is 2. So now I'm going to plug 2 in and replace it, and I'm going to be looking for g of 2. So when x is 2 on the G graph, y is what? 0. Okay? All right. Next one. This is the last one. Okay? So this is saying, so you got two graphs again. You got an f of x graph and you got a g of x graph. Okay, this is a quadratic and a linear. The last one was two quadratics. So this is saying first find g of -1. Okay, so I'm going to go to my g graph and I got to find out when x is -1, what is y? So when x is -1, y is also -1. So I'm going to replace that with -1, and now I'm looking for f of -1. So when x is -1 over here, y is -2. And that's your answer. Okay? Last one, we're going to rewrite it to the way we like it. G of f of 0. And guys, you don't have to rewrite it. I like to rewrite it because I feel like it's clear for you guys to see and understand the substitution that's going on. So first I'm going to find f of 0. Okay? So I got to go to the f graph. So on the f graph, when x is 0, y is -2. So now I'm going to replace f of 0 with -2. So now I'm looking for g of -2. So I go to my g graph. When x is -2, which is right here, y is going to be 3. And that's your answer. Okay? All right, so if you need more examples, let me know. Email me. And I hope this helps. Thanks, guys.